All right, welcome in, guys. Farzin Vasugian here with you for a special edition of the Chiefs Zone podcast. Very excited to introduce our special guest in a moment. If you see the title of the podcast, you already know who it is. I mentioned yesterday, January the 1st. I'm not one for New Year's resolutions, but my goal, let's bring some former players on this year. Page is definitely growing. Podcast has grown. I appreciate you guys for all of that. My goal, 10 former players for 2024. So we're going to start with number one tonight. Before we get into that, I want to let you know this podcast is brought to you by SeatGeek. The Chiefs are in the playoffs, and guess what? They will have at the very least one home game at Arrowhead. So if you want to go to Arrowhead and catch the Chiefs in the playoffs, got a couple of different scenarios who they could play, one of 5 teams. You can go to SeatGeek.com, get your tickets there, and if you're a first-time customer, you can use my promo code Farzine. You will get $20 off your first purchase. That is only good for first-time customers. Put in my promo code Farzine, and you will save $20 off your first purchase. Go check out the Chiefs at Arrowhead for the playoffs or any other sporting event, concert you want to attend. Get them through SeatGeek.com and use promo code Farzine if you are a first-time customer. All right, let's get into it now. Joining me right now on the podcast, he is a former Kansas City Chief, played for the Chiefs from 2013 to 2015, also doing his podcast as well. So you guys definitely are familiar with his commentary. Very excited to have this guy on. Former Chiefs defensive end Mike DeVito here on the podcast. Mike, thank you so much. Welcome. How are you?
Fars, this is great, man. Thank you for having me on. I can't believe I'm the first one of former players to be on this year. So
yes,
I'm excited, man. And the beauty of that is you can only go up from here. You know what I mean? So you can only get better.
We were joking before we started coming on about you spent a couple of years here in Kansas City, and you said that you can tell how long you've been away from the game because of how many times the Chiefs have won the AFC West, which is 8 years in a row now, ever since you retired, Mike.
Oh, of course, man. Every year a new graphic comes out. Hey, look, the Chiefs won the AFC West 4 times. They won it 5 times. They won it 6 times. And I'm just like, man, I'm so glad I retired just in time to watch all this stuff. You know what I mean? It's like, come on. But I'm excited because being a Chiefs fan and obviously still having a lot of friends, especially on the coaching staff, and then even some guys that are still there that when I was there, you know, it's nice to be able to watch them do well, succeed, and far as see what started in 2013 when Andy Reid got there really blossom into what it is now. And so, you know, I would die to be a part of it. But watching it and seeing what it's become has been really it's been awesome, and it's made the transition out of football very nice, you know.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good starting point. You mentioned joining the team in 2013. I'll never forget 2012, man. That was just a devastating year with everything that happened on and off the field too. Fans. I think a fan got into it with the Chiefs on their Twitter account through DMs, and that became public knowledge. The Javon Belcher incident obviously was a big one. That was a national story. Several other things that happened, fans flying banners over the stadium, and obviously the worst record in the NFL at 2-12. And here's the crazy thing. They didn't really change a whole lot personnel-wise. On the offensive side, obviously Alex Smith coming in. On the defensive side, they only had 3 new starters. You were one of them. I'm curious, what was like the mindset and the message trying to transition out of 2012 and trying to start fresh in 2013?
You know, it was easy for me, Fars, because I had been with the Jets for 6 years. So easy in one sense is that I wasn't coming in with any of that inherited stuff that those other guys that were there were dealing with, right? I mean, for me, it wasn't 3 months ago that our middle linebacker, you know, killed himself and killed someone else. And you know, you had that 2 and 4. I mean, that had to be one of the most difficult seasons any team has been through in NFL history. I mean, that was just a nightmare. But I, you know, for me, I was, because I hadn't been a part of it, it really wasn't in the front of my mind. So getting into that facility, what was really not shocking, but was really new was being around Andy Reid. I mean, being around an obvious Hall of Fame coach who everybody trusts. I mean, right away, you know, he knows how to win football games, and he's got a process that's going to get it done. And so that was really nice to buy into that. But one thing I always talk about when I think about those teams is you're exactly right. You had all these Pro Bowl players there, specifically on defense, but even on offense, you had guys that were incredible players. I still remember it's the offensive line, right? You got Rodney Hudson, you got Brandon Albert, Jeff Allen, Schwartz was there, Jeff Schwartz. I mean, you just had Jamal Charles, and then on defense, forget it. You had Tamba, you had Justin, you had EB, you had Derek Johnson. I mean, it was just loaded. So that was like almost like a paradox to me. Like, how could it be that these guys went 2-14 with all of this talent? And so it was amazing going in there. You think you're going into a 2-14 team and it's just going to be a train wreck, but it wasn't. I mean, the one thing I noticed from the jump is I talk about all those Hall of Fame players. They approached the game like undrafted free agents. I mean, they worked so hard. Every day they're there early, staying late. I just really had never seen anything like it. And so there was a standard that was already set that like, hey, our best players are going to work their tail off. So if you want to be a leader, if you want to contribute to this defense or this offense, you better live up to the standard that's here. And then you add Andy Reid into the mix and his philosophy, his style of coaching, his style of mentoring, the type of person that he is, and his coaching staff around him. Forget it. As far as, I mean, this I know we have Pat Mahomes, we have these players that are just lights out. I mean, the best to ever play the game. But I really do believe that the trajectory was on course to be what the Chiefs are today, regardless, just because of the way Andy Reid handles things and because of the philosophy that was so entrenched in that locker room, which was just like, we're just going to get after it. So again, watching them now, having seen where we started in 2013, it's not surprising, but it's really fun to watch.
Yeah, and you mentioned some of those guys. I remember Tamba Hali was asked about the turnaround because you guys did start 9-0 that year, and he quickly pointed to coaching. He said that's been the biggest difference this year. And listen, that defense was a lot of fun to watch. It kind of reminds me of the defense right now in a way, and we can get into that a little later on. But man, you mentioned some of those guys, and I think a couple of guys I'd like to add in there, guys like Dontari Poe, Sean Smith, who I think was very underrated, and kind of reminds me a lot of L'Jarius Sneed right now. What was it like being around those guys during your time here?
Oh, as far as it was incredible. When I first got there, Glenn Dorsey had left, and I had taken his spot at the end. And, I think Dorsey always got a lot of, not a lot of, but he caught flack for not, producing sack numbers that you would think out of a first-round pick out of LSU. But as a defensive lineman who studied the game and studied players who were excellent at their craft, he was one of the guys I watched. Because he was incredible. When you watched him in the run game, his technique was great. And he's in that old school 3-4 where you're two gap and everything. And so you're not getting sacks in that defense regardless. But I loved watching him. And so I say that to say, I was worried going into that defense and that team of, living up to the standard that he had set at defensive end. Because not only did you have all these Hall of Fame players around me, like you said, Dontari Poe, Tyson Jackson, Alan Bailey, all these guys up front.
Yeah.
But I had to replace a guy who I always looked up to. I thought was an incredible player. And so there was a lot of nervousness and there was a lot of anxiety. And I think something I wish if I could go back and fix, it would be the sort of nervousness, anxiety to be perfect all the time, to try to fill that role and live up to that. I think that hindered my play a little bit, but that's really how I felt, was like, man, these guys are incredible. And so, yeah, but speaking to your question about what it was like to be around those guys, they're incredible human beings. I mean, I was just talking to Alan Bailey the other day. I mean, the NFL is so transient, and you don't normally not that you don't keep friendships, but keep in contact with people. And I still keep in contact with a lot of those guys. And so it was easy to be a part of that brotherhood, because as hard as they worked and as good as they were on the field, and as much as they were guys that deserved to be like ego type guys and about themselves and that, They were not. They were about the team, about the family, about the brotherhood. And so it was really nice to go in there and make, lifelong friends. Derek Johnson, see his jersey on the wall. And there's a picture of him back there. I mean, that's my brother. I love that man. And so, I made lifelong friends being out there. I'm grateful for that. Jeff Allen, another one. I love, Big Jeff. So I miss those guys, Fars.
Yeah. And I think you've had Jeff Allen on your podcast at least a couple of times. I haven't listened to every episode, which, by the way, I know it's with KCSN, but what's the name of it and how can people listen to you?
Yeah. So Jeff and I were doing the one-on-one podcast. We did that for 3 years. And then this year we switched to different roles at KCSN. I'm doing the defensive film room breakdown with Craig Stout and Derek Johnson. So that's on every week on KCSM YouTube channel. Yeah.
Very cool.
So,
okay.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool. I get to hang out with DJ and watch film, which is fun. I like to break down defensive film. So it's a good time.
Man, DJ, he really turned it around. I know in 2009, everyone kept saying he was in the doghouse. He wasn't getting as many snaps as he would like. And then that season finale right there, him and Jamal Charles in 2009, I'll never forget, which, by the way, I think they were hanging out just last night at the Texas game, which I know did not go well for them. But, man, those guys destroyed the like, if there was like an offensive player and a defensive player in the same game who just absolutely kicked ass, it was those two guys. And they also eliminated the Broncos from playoff contention, which was crazy. So that's good to see DJ, how he turned around his career, I should say.
Well, yeah, no, and just quick to that point, because DJ told me that when I got there, how he had been in the doghouse for a while until that point. I don't know if it was 2009, and I just found that so shocking. You know what I mean? Because he's such a good player. I was like, how are you ever in the doghouse? But it does speak to the type of person that he is, that he can overcome that adversity in his career and become a Hall of Famer. I mean, a lot of guys, myself included, that kind of stuff can really, like I said, hinder you to getting to where you really can be, where he used it as motivation to be great. And that's what makes him so special.
I'll going back to the 2013 season, and I don't know how much of the noise you guys heard, because at the time social media was not as big as it is today. Yeah. But I remember some of the criticism was, well, they're beating teams that are bad and have backup quarterbacks. And I always responded and said, yeah, but a lot of the teams they're beating, they just got whooped the previous year. And I know you were not there for that, but man, a lot of those teams that you guys beat during the 9-0 start, those are teams the Chiefs lost to the year before, not just lost to, got blown out. It was really embarrassing to watch. So that turnaround season, I will never forget the enthusiasm, just the exuberance from not just the team, but from the entire city that year.
Yeah, yeah. And Forrest, that was a learning year for everybody. I think I don't know what Andy Reid's past records have been, and I don't know about all the players on the team, but I had never gone 9-0. 9-0. I mean, that was like, it doesn't matter. You played a 10th of the NFL or a third of the NFL. Sorry, it's like, you can only play who they put. I mean, you got to play who they put out. Those are all pros. And so to go 9-0, I think one thing that we learned that I think continues to carry, especially with Andy Reid and his staff, is you can't let the foot off the gas. I think we got to 9-0 and we were like, damn, we're freaking unstoppable. We're going to walk into this. And then we finished. What did we finish? 10-6?
11-5, I think.
11-5. Yeah. 11-5. So down the stretch, it was hard sledding. So, and I think one of the reasons is we let off the gas a little bit. Practice got a little sloppy. You win that many games in a row, things get pushed under the rug. You're not as critical about fixing things, and I think that came back to bite us. And I think that's something Andy Reid has. But you see, they really haven't had those kind of slip ups. But I mean, obviously they've had struggles and stuff, but yeah, I feel like there was a big difference those first 9 games, and then we just, we hit a rough patch towards the end of that season. So, yeah, but no, that was incredible. That was a lot of fun. You talk about, winning in the NFL. You win 2 in a row. You're going to work. You're feeling good. You're feeling loose. 9 in a row. Damn, you couldn't say anything to me. I was freaking. My wife and I going out to dinner every night. It was awesome. I was loving it.
I can't remember who said this. I want to say it was Rex Grossman, but I can't remember who said this. I wish I had the right name, but excuse me. I think something was said to the effect of, when you win one week, it feels like you're on top of the world. When you lose a game or have two back-to-back losses, it feels like the end of the world. And you kind of feel that even more so now with Twitter and social media and all that. So that's just crazy, man.
Yeah, you're right. And I guess I'm really not thinking about it until right now, but the element of social media to influence momentum, I don't know if that's the right way to say it, but like, because most players, I don't know if they admit it or not, but like we'll look at that stuff, we'll look at the media, we'll look at the social media and what people are saying, and I follow it now, and the Chiefs have one bad game, and it's like Andy Reid needs to retire and cut Pat Mahomes. It's just like crazy takes, and you're just like, guys, geez, I'm crow. Like we just talked about 8 AFC West Conference champions. All the AFC championship games, and all the the Super Bowls, and it's just like it's easy to forget how 10 years ago. I mean, we've been on this for a long time, but prior to all of this, it was again 2-14. So, yeah, but no, it really can influence the social media and how fast opinions can change of a team on 1 week. It's mind-boggling to me sometimes. I mean, sometimes I see the criticism. I'm just like, how could you? I think who's one I always see is Dan Sorensen, right? Like, they have a Super Bowl ring over there because of the plays that Dan Sorensen made.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah. You know what I mean? But it's like he had a bad game and they're like, oh, go. It's like how quickly you forget how impactful these guys were. So, but I get it. I'm on the outside now and I'm like, yeah, no, I feel the same way. So yeah, the key is for, the best teams are the ones that are going to be able to block out that noise. And I think Kansas City over this 10-year, 11-year stretch has done a good job of that.
You, I mean, obviously you joined the Chiefs in 2013, but one defensive coach who you stuck with for quite some time was Bob Sutton. Did he like play a role, or did he have an influence in you joining the Chiefs that year?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Because Bob was the linebackers coach in New York. And then Andy signed him to the DC role. And so he was the catalyst in bringing me over. I believe that, and I'm so grateful for Bob. I mean, Bob was there. Bob was the DC for the Jets when I first got in the NFL in 2007. So we spent my whole career together. So I love Bob. I owe him so much, and he's a brilliant defensive mind. I learned how to study the game because of Bob Sutton. When we were in New York, Bob would have these meetings on Wednesdays before everything else got going. And they were like 45-minute meetings, and they were optional. You could join if you wanted to. And he would break down the run game. He would give you a sort of 45-minute fire hose of the run, the runs that you were going to face for that week. And that was like the most insightful, impactful meetings I've ever been a part of. I mean, the way he broke down the run game and taught me to study down and distances, study tendencies, study formations and personnels and all this stuff, that changed my game because it allowed me, even later in my career when I was starting to slow down, to position myself in advantageous ways because I knew what was coming. And I remembered offensive linemen towards the end of my career getting so mad, being like, it's like how do you know what we're doing all the time? Like, wow, are we giving it away? Are we tipping it? Because I would just study the game so much, and he really taught me how to do that.
Was it hard for you to see the criticism in 2018 for him when the Chiefs were ranked 31st and then eventually losing his job in Kansas City?
Yeah, it was hard. As far as I think that is a product of just, I don't think it was Bob's fault. I think the personnel changed, and I think the way that offenses have changed since 2013, but it just is a different game. And so like when I look at these guys now, the speed of the game is incredibly fast. And it's all, when a team like we saw last week with KC, when they run the football a lot, that's like an outlier, right? It's like everybody's chucking the ball, everybody's up the field 100 miles an hour on defense. And so that's just what the game has evolved to, obviously they're outliers, but it used to be run heavy, right? I've told this story a lot before, but my first year in the NFL, 2007, we had, playing Brady twice a year in New England. And you think Tom Brady in his prime, where his prime ended up being 2 decades, but in his prime, I remember the personnel groups we were studying for the most were 13, 22, 23. And the Patriots had these big ass tight ends and offensive linemen, and they were just running downhill, running the football. And so so that was what the game was when I got started. And then 2013, we get to the Chiefs, and at the end of the year, my D-line coach comes in and he says, "Hey, look, you got to work on your pass rush." He said, "We did a breakdown of the plays, and 70% of the plays are in 11 personnel." I was like, "Bro, I'm 32 and I'm 320 pounds. Like, it's over. It's over. This is you signed a run stop. You know what I mean? Like, this is it." But the game has just changed so much, and I think 2018, when with the situation with that, I think the personnel had changed to match the game. You got big Chris Jones and guys like that. But the defense was still, Rex Ryan, Bob Sutton, a lot of 2-gap elements. And the thing is, especially up front, Fars, when you have, there's tension, right? Because you have a guy like Chris Jones, who you don't want him 2-gapping. You know what I mean? That's why you're wasting his talent by doing that. Tell him to go 100 miles an hour. The problem is when you got Bob Sutton's defense and you do that, it messes everything up because you have to 2-gap up front. That's why Tony Saragusa and Kelly Gregg and all these, they've made their livings, and Ray Lewis and those guys were making plays in the backfield because the big guys in that defense are supposed to hold people up. If they fly off the football, it just screws everything up. And so again, this isn't to blame Chris or anything. I think it was just, or anybody over there. I think it's crazy to have Chris 2-gap. But the personnel changed, the defense didn't, and the personnel didn't match Bob's defense, but it does match perfectly with Spags' defense. It works great. Those guys, get off the ball, play run on the way to the quarterback. You know what I mean? That's the kind of defensive line defense you're looking for. And so I think Spags and obviously Andy Reid, he knows that. And so Spags is the perfect guy. I remember, what was Spags coaching when I got in the league? Was he with the Rams?
He was the head coach there for 1 year, and I think he took a break the year before he came to the Chiefs. I can't remember where he was. I'll look it up quickly.
Yeah, no, but I remember, like, wherever he was, that's the type of defense they ran, where it was like, the Rams was like 100 miles an hour up the field. I remember Chris Long and those guys just flying up the field. Yeah. And so that really fits well in today's world, and Andy Reid knows that, so it's a perfect hire.
Yeah, he was the interim coach with the Giants and also their defensive coordinator for a few years. Yeah, and then looks like he took a break during the 2018 season. I did want to go back to 2013, a couple of other things. Obviously, that season didn't end the way anyone wanted it to in Indianapolis. Obviously, like as a fan, like that was just complete heartbreak. I'm curious from the other side of it as a player. What do you remember after the game in terms of what Andy Reid said, how the players were feeling? Because I think as fans, we feel a certain way, but we don't see like the other side of it. Can you maybe give us like a little bit of insight, like what Andy Reid maybe said after the game and how some of the guys in the locker room felt?
Yeah, I don't even remember what Andy said after the game. I just remember that I don't know if I've been more disappointed in my football career than after that game. Because everybody knows the story. But you know what else was frustrating? We were so far ahead that I didn't really play because it was all nickel and dime defenses out there because we were crushing them. So I had to watch the whole thing from the sideline. So I didn't even get to really contribute at all. And then to watch us, get closer and closer and start losing and losing and losing, the spread get closer and closer and closer, and key guys getting hurt and the concussions, and then we're out of running backs, and then linemen are getting hurt, and it just was like, I just have never been a part of such a disastrous, collapse. And I remember being so motivated going into that offseason, because I was just like, I woke up every day with the taste in my mouth from that game. So it was miserable. That was probably the worst loss in my career. And that year didn't play out any better for me because I ended up getting hurt, breaking my hand in training camp, missed all the training camp 2014, then tore my Achilles in the first game and missed the two. So that 2014 was not a good year for me. Started off with the worst loss of my career, and then sitting out the whole year because of injury. But yeah, so it was so bad. I don't even remember what Andy Reid said. I just remember I just wanted to get out of that locker room, go home, and just try to reset and move on the next year, because it was such an awful taste in your mouth. And I think who was next? Who are we going to play? We would have played New England next, I think. Was that the Deflategate year?
I honestly don't recall. That was the Deflategate was the following year. The Deflategate was the following year. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I think I remember being like, "Damn, we had a good chance to get on a run if we would have kept that together." So yeah, no, that was really, really frustrating loss. And there just are no words after something like that. I would imagine, obviously something even more difficult would be that 28-3 collapse in the Super Bowl with New England and Atlanta. And just you see something like that happen, and I always wonder, dang, what did Dan Quinn say to those guys? Like, I don't know if there is anything you can really say other than like, hang together, hold each other up, and I'm sure Coach Reid's message was something like that, because those are devastating losses. It's one thing if it's back and forth and you come out on top or you come out, but it's like when you're crushing a team, absolutely crushing a team, and then you let them back in and win. Oh man, awful. I don't want to talk it anymore for us.
Yeah, let's go ahead and move on from that. I think we already got the answer to that question. Last thing I want to say about that season, a lot of people forget because he didn't play that year, but that was the year Travis Kelce was drafted, and obviously, no one could see his career pan out the way it has now. I know you were on the defensive side. You were a newcomer. He was also a newcomer. Did you get a chance to spend a lot of time around him? Did you get to know him? Do you have any funny stories maybe about him from his rookie season?
Yeah, one thing I loved about Kelce, and it's been this way since then, is he's just got so much swag, man. He just like always looking good, always dressed good, and always carries a smile. Right. He just has a presence about him. And so, but one thing that's interesting is I remember his frustration that first year. And when you look at his story, and I didn't realize this until, recently when he did an interview, I think on E60 about everything that happened at Cincinnati and how he got kicked off the team and how his brother had to fight to get him out, and he had to fight his way back. And then he fights his way back, gets drafted, and then gets hurt the first year. Just the tenacity that he has to just those type of things crush guys. But his tenacity to keep going, keep grinding, to keep working hard has been incredible. And so, you asked for a funny story. It's like I always tried to copy him with the stuff he would wear to the games, right? So he'd be all dressed up nice, and I'd be like, damn, I gotta dress up like Kelce, and I put some stuff on. My wife be like, no, you can't do it. 320 can't do a skinny tie and skinny jeans. It ain't gonna work. You know what I mean? So,
it's another interesting season that you were a part of was the 2015 season when the team started 1-5, and I think I remember seeing on one of like I think Frank Bowl posted. One of the sports betting websites said that the Chiefs only had a 1.4% chance of making the playoffs. And man, you guys cruised after that 1-5 start. What do you attribute that to? What changed after those first 6 weeks?
far as there was one meeting, and I tell people this all the time. It was such a profound moment in my life. It was after the Minnesota loss, the Vikings. So that was the 5th loss. And we were going to play Detroit and London the next week. And Andy Reid had a team meeting, and he was fired up. And he said, here's what we're going to do. He said, we're not going to think about Sunday. He's like, everybody's going to tell you we're not making the playoffs. This, that. And we say, we're not going to worry about the playoffs. We're not going to worry about games down the road. We're not going to even worry about this game. We're not going to worry about anything except for what's next on the schedule. He said, whatever's next on the schedule, whether it be going to eat lunch, whether it be to work out, whether it be to, meetings, whatever it is, win at whatever that is. We're going to do that better than our opponents do. So when you go to eat lunch, eat better than your opponents do, right? When you go to watch film, study more, study harder, study better than your opponents are. Lift weights, same thing. Take your wife out to dinner, same thing. Better meal, better everything than what your opponent's going to do. Let's cultivate this winning in these little, these little small steps. And I'll tell you what, that one speech changed the trajectory of the entire thing. There were other elements involved. I think one thing, when you get to a point where you're 1-5, and the guys know that your chances of being successful are really low. Basically none. I don't know if there was another team in the NFL that had come back. Maybe there must have been one if it was a 1% chance, but I thought it was 0. But the one, you have what guys will end up doing. There are two different trajectories that can get everybody out of whack in situations like that. You got one guy who might be up on a contract year, and this is a guy that's just going to go rogue to pad his stats so that he can start building a resume to get a better contract, right? You see, like on defense, guys playing outside of the defense just to try to make plays because screw it, who cares? We're not going anywhere, so let me just do what I got to do to get my money. And then you have other guys who already have their contracts who are saying, you know what, I just don't want to get hurt. So I'm going to try to, get out of as much as I can and be as safe as I can and not worry, And I think Andy Reid, the way he builds teams is he makes sure there's leadership at each position, right? Each position has a strong leader. You can see the way he crafts a roster that he's paying attention not only to talent and skill set, but you can point to each spot and say, oh yeah, that guy, the guys are going to follow that guy. And I think having a roster that had that element of leadership on it kept guys from going in either of those two directions I just laid out. So you had that, elements like that just built into Andy Reid's philosophy that kept us together and kept us going. But I really, that one team meeting, I still remember it. That pivotal, changed the whole thing. Far as I've never seen anything like it. And then we go to England, England or wherever it was, the UK, beat Detroit, and then boom, then we're running them. So bam, bam, bam. Now we're back in it. And what did we win? 11 in a row before we lost to New England.
I want to say 11, including the playoffs.
Including the playoffs, yeah. And then lost to New England, which is fitting because my whole life I've been losing to Tom Brady. Growing up a Jets fan in New England, losing to Tom Brady. Playing 6 years for the Jets, losing to Tom Brady. Last game in the NFL, January 16th, 2016, in Foxborough, lost to New England and Tom Brady. So it was a poetic way to leave the NFL.
Well, I got to say, I wanted to bring this up, but I guess this is the perfect time to get into it. Man, I'll never forget those 2 years with the Jets where you guys were so close. Like everybody thought it was the Jets' year to go to the Super Bowl. And I think you guys beat the Patriots in one of those playoff games, if I recall.
Biggest win in my career was the divisional round against New England, where 3 or 4 weeks earlier in the regular season, we lost 42-3 or something like that to New England in New England. Now we're back there in the divisional round. And, playing Tom Brady, we knew, and I'm sure teams talk about Mahomes like this. It's like you got to cut the head off the snake. He's the head of the whole thing. If you can neutralize him, we're done. They're done, and you're good to go. And so I remember that first defensive drive. I don't remember if we started the game or if we came off second, but whatever it was, Brady and New England start driving down the field, and you're like, oh no, here we go. They're on fire. They're hot. Then all of a sudden, midway down, play happens and they throw a pick. They throw it to Dave Harris, our linebacker, and he runs it all the way back. I don't think he scored, but he ran it all the way back. And that was another one of those. In an instant, we knew we got them. We got them. They're not ready. And from that point on, we kept the foot on the gas, and they couldn't come back. And so, that was the biggest win of my career. And being, having family, having grown up in New England, my family, friends, everybody in New England.
Yeah.
That was a nice feeling. They hated my guts, but and New England was 14-2 that year. I mean, they would have won the Super Bowl if they won that game. But yeah, no, that was the biggest win. I mean, those 2 years were fun. I loved playing for Rex Ryan. You went to work and just had so much fun. So much. I mean, he was just so funny, and the coaching staff was funny, and it was just very loose, and like, you make a mistake, screw it, let's move on. You laugh it off, you move on. And I was surrounded by just football icon. I mean, like, I got to play with LaDainian Tomlinson. I got to play with Jason Taylor, right? I got to play with these Darrelle Revis. I got to Chris Jenkins. I got to play with these incredible players. The offensive line, I still Nick Mangold, DeBrickashaw Ferguson, all these guys. Alan Faneca, it was just so I got to be around Hall of Fame players as a young player, and to be around Rex Ryan and his coaching staff. I mean, those 2 years were the most fun I had in the league, hands down.
Couple more questions before we let you go here. I know you mentioned you were born in New York, you went to high school in Massachusetts, and you kind of stuck in that region, that Northeast region. You went to college in Maine, and you're still very involved. I see. I want to get the right title here. You are the Director of Player Development and Alumni Relations for Maine. Obviously, a lot of people want to stay connected with their alma mater and whatnot. So it's really cool to see you're doing that. Can you maybe dive into your title a little bit? Because I think we hear these kinds of jobs like head coach, assistant coach, like everyone knows what those entail. But titles like this, Director of Operations, those kinds of things, we don't really know much about those. What do you do for Maine, as much as you're allowed to discuss?
Yeah, Fars. No, it's interesting because it's not a role that you see in every college. There are a number of colleges that have it, the player development role, but it's something that I learned in the NFL, because NFL teams have player engagement roles. And so back up a little bit, 2 years ago, the University of Maine hired Jordan Stevens, who played defensive line with me when I was at Maine. And so we were teammates together, and we played on the defensive line together. So when UMaine hired him, I was like, yeah, I want to be in to do whatever I can to help. And going back to my NFL experience, I knew how important the player development role was, and I saw that we didn't have that. And so, so I said, hey, let me be a part of this. Let me, take this role. And that was something that Jordan thought was a good idea. The coaching staff thought was good. Organization thought was good. And so we went with it. And it's different. I originally went into it thinking it was going to be like the NFL. Obviously, college is a lot different than the NFL. What I do is sort of tangential to football and academics, but yet I still get involved with those roles as well. But it's dealing with leadership development and career development and networking and alumni relations, connecting our alumni with our current players, former players or current players. And then there's a lot of things, getting guys jobs in the summer, or dealing with apartment stuff, and things that I can take off the coach's plate so they can focus on football, and things I can take off the player's plate so they can focus on football and academics. And then working with the guys to build a more holistic approach to the player. So they're getting, hopefully I'm instilling other attributes and values that you wouldn't just get from academics and football. And so it's been really fun for us. And the thing that's been nice about it for me personally is I miss the game so much. I miss being a part of a team and working towards something. You miss the guys in the locker room. And so this has been great because it allows me to be back around the game again. And I've tried coaching, I've tried broadcasting, all that stuff. But I'm just not talented in those areas. And I think a lot of times people think because you played, oh, you'll be a great commentator, or you'll be a great media person, or you'll be a great coach. And it's just not the case. Those are totally different talents. The player development role is perfect because I can go in there, encourage the guys, try to motivate the guys, give them any information I can. But then it gives so much back to me because I get to be a part of it again, be a part of the team. And so, yeah, so it's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of, rewarding experience. And yeah, I'm looking forward to the future, continuing to do it. And, we're talking now, you finish the year and you're thinking about recruiting and getting better. And it's like, I'm so excited to be a part of that and try to help this team continue to grow and get better. So I'm very fortunate.
I've got to ask this. This is one of the things I really wanted to ask you. I'm very curious because I'm a huge UFC fan, and I think Dana White is also from Maine, and he showed a little bit of. I think he still has like a vacation home or something there. I'm very curious. What is Maine like to someone that's never been there before? How would you describe it?
Oh, it's funny. Dana White's house is like 10 minutes from me.
Oh, nice. Do you guys hang out?
So cool. It's so cool. You got Dana White, and then in the other direction, Stephen King's house is about 10 minutes the other way. Yeah,
look
so
at that.
It's wild. What is Maine like? Wow, there's a lot of rural areas. The environment and just like being outside is great. It's cold. It's freezing cold. It's freezing, which I love. Being 320 pounds, I love it. The people remind me a lot of Kansas City. It's like very humble, hardworking, loving, caring, great people. It's an excellent place to raise kids. I think if I was coming, I'm more central Maine, central northern Maine. If I was coming here to vacation, there are beautiful spots along the coast, right? Bar Harbor and all these beautiful places. There's, obviously a ton of fish, lobster, all that stuff. Where I'm at, I'm close to the campus, which has 16,000 students. So that's really built up, but I'm tucked away, a very rural area. Again, snow, cold, great people. I love it. It's great. I mean, it's not that much different than the Midwest, to be honest, outside of, you have the ocean on one side. But yeah, no, it's a great place, great people, and excellent place to raise kids. I'm very fortunate to have my boys have an opportunity to watch my boys grow up here. So I love it. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else, Fars.
Good, very cool. Last thing before we let you go, we've obviously covered a lot your time with the Chiefs, Maine, and Jets. I got to ask you about the current team. The defense, obviously, again against a very good group of wide receivers, just continuing to get the job done. And the offense showed some improvement. I know a lot of people not happy about 6 field goals, but I keep saying, you got to start somewhere because the Chiefs have had issues scoring. They've been under 20 in a lot of games recently, but they managed to pass that threshold. What do you make of this current defense right now? Because I think they just keep proving themselves time and time again. It hasn't been perfect, but man, they've gone up against a lot of top tier wide receivers and they just keep shutting them down. What do you make of this defense right now?
Far as I always get so, I'm like bittersweet about this defense because my crew from my era, we always talk about how, man, imagine if we had our defense with that. Nothing, our offense was really good. But if you think about the 2018, 2019, 2020, Pat Mahomes and that offense with our defense, right? All those guys, man, we'd be killing it. And now I'm like, I'm pretty. This defense, I don't want to speak out of turn. This is up for debate, but I would say that this is probably the best defense that the Andy Reid era has seen. I mean, they're just statistically everything. They're just locked down, and they've just been consistent. I mean, I can't. Can you think of a bad game? I mean, maybe I'm forgetting one, but they've just been so consistent. Tom Brady said. The other, there was big news a week or I don't know how long ago it was, but he said the quality of the game isn't as good as it was when we were there. And I know that got a lot of hype. And there are different ways to think about that and discuss that. The one thing I will say is, given the restrictions on practice time, it's not surprising, especially when I watch the game as, somebody who prided myself as a technician in the run game. It's not surprising that some of the techniques are sloppy because you just don't, we practiced 12 hours, we were at the facility 12 hours a day in OTAs, let alone training camp and the regular season. I mean, we just had so much more time. I say all that to say, I don't see that with Kansas City. I see technically sound football, not just guys, getting it done because they're super talented, but there's like technically sound football across the board. The run game, everybody has perfect fits. And a lot of times they're in light boxes, perfect fits up front. They're doing a great job against the run. Obviously, they can get pressure, and that's Spags' thing. So again, I think it's the best. It's arguably the best defense that the Andy Reid era has seen, which is saying a lot when you think of some of the defenses and some of the guys that have been in there. And I think, again, anybody can have one good game, but to have 17 good games, that's hard to do. I've been on 2 years in a row. I believe we were the number one defense in the NFL, and there were games we had bad games. I haven't seen this team do that, and so it's so strange, Fars, and you would probably know better than I do, but I just can't explain the struggles on offense because they're so talented. You know what I mean? Like they're so.
What I noticed is they look like, I mean, I know there was that blow up with Willie Gay on the sidelines, but after that 17-7 start, they just looked like they were having fun. Yeah, I have not been able to say that in a long time this season.
Right. That's it. Yeah, you got to have fun. Yeah, no, you're exactly right. You got to have fun and play loose. And it could be something like that, right? Where it's like a batter gets in a slump or Tiger Woods is, off his putting game or something. Like it could be that you have one bad game and then that's the mental spiral effect where it's just like you can't get out of your own way. And you're exactly right. That's why it's so important to have fun, to play loose, because it mitigates that sort of that worry of just getting in that funk. Because when you're out there having fun, everything's good. You're exactly right, and that was great to see. And this was a really important game to win, obviously, but trending upward going into the playoffs. I mean, we see it every year. Like teams that stagger and stumble into the playoffs generally don't last long. It's but the 9-7 team that has won the last three, and now they're going to. That's the Giants that beat the perfect Patriots in the Super Bowl. So that's what you're looking for. And this was a game that they had to win. Obviously, next week you should go and crush San Diego or
the Chargers.
The Chargers, yeah.
We knew what you meant.
Dating myself. Yeah, I still call them San Diego. I'm like, I'm not.
Everyone does. Everyone.
But no. So it was good to see the momentum going, getting in the right direction. Perfect time for it. And so, but no, okay. So to your question, the defense is incredible, and forget it. If the offense can get that spark back, forget it. They'll walk into the Super Bowl. They just got to get it going. And I love the way they went to the run. Right? It's like have Pacheco just run the football. You got that big offensive line. I watch those guys double team up there. I'm just like, oh my goodness, thank God I'm retired. You know what I mean? Like I don't know how they hang in there. Lean on that. You run the football like that, everything else opens up. The game just becomes so much easier for everybody. So, but the defense is looking real good, brother.
Before you go, your podcast, for those who may be joining in a little late, how can people listen to your podcast? And if you're on social media, how can people follow you?
Oh, of course. Thank you, brother. I'm on Twitter at Michael DeVito 70. And then the podcast is called, is the Defensive Film Breakdown with Craig Stout and Derek Johnson. And that is every week on KCSN. It's on the YouTube channel, on KCSN YouTube channel. So, and that's a lot of fun. We get to go through the X's and O's and break down the game in some details. That's a good time. Thank you, Fars. I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's my pleasure. I appreciate you making time. Best of luck. We'll keep in touch, and hopefully the Chiefs come away victorious. Get another Lombardi this year.
Yeah, Fars. Thank you so much for having me on, man. It's an honor to be number one. I can't wait to see who's on here next, man. Again, you're going up from here. So
we'll have to do this again sometime. Hey, Mike. Thank you again. You take care. Happy New Year, and we'll keep in touch.
See you, Fars. Appreciate you, brother.
Right. Thank you, Mike. Take care. All right, that is Mike DeVito, former Chiefs defensive end. I was very curious to know what Maine was like. Very curious to know. And for him to be somewhat of a connection to Dana White. Very cool indeed. Very cool. All right, that'll do it for this episode of the Chiefs Zone podcast. Once again, a big shout out to Mike DeVito for taking the time to come on the podcast. If you haven't done so, check out his podcast. He mentioned where it is. Check it out on KCSN's YouTube page. And he does a lot of commentary on social media from time to time. So check that out as well. All right. My name is Farzin Vasugian. Thank you all for downloading and listening to this podcast of the Chiefs Zone. Tomorrow we'll be back. We will revisit the Bengals game one last time, kind of put the bow on that, and then move forward to the Chargers game. I will be honest, I don't know. I know Mike was mentioning, expecting to blow them out, but I don't know at the end of the day if the starter is going to play much. I know Chris Jones might, because he wants to get that deal. Or I think he's like one sack away from $1 million. I don't know what it is exactly. I don't remember the incentives specifically, but there's that. I know Kelsey needs 16 yards or something of that nature to get 1,000. And he would be the seventh player to do it 8 years in a row. I mean, that'd be pretty cool to get. So I remember they let Kareem Hunt play that week 17 game just to get the rushing record. And as soon as he got that touchdown, that long touchdown run, they took him out of the game. So the press conference is tomorrow afternoon, early afternoon. So we will see what Andy Reid says. He tends to let it be known. 2013, the Chiefs rested the starters in week 17. 2017, that was Mahomes' debut. And then I think the Chiefs did it again in 2020, where the Chiefs had the number 1 seed locked up. So we will see what happens there. All right. Once again, big shout out to Mike DeVito. Thanks to him for coming on the podcast. Thank you to you guys for downloading, listening to the podcast, or for those who watched live on Facebook and YouTube. Trying to get my words together there. All right, guys, I'm out of here. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. Talk to you tomorrow. Take care.